Hi everyone. So today is going to be another story time while I do my eyeshadow and stuff. I already did my foundation and stuff. So today's story time is going to be the birth story of my second child. He'll be 16 years old, September 2nd. Okay, so basically I was due for him. His name is Brayden. I was due for Brayden on October the 15th. And I had him, I think, 6 weeks early on September 2nd. So the story with him is his dad was working offshore at the time. So which means he was only home 1 week out the month. And he was leaving for work that night at 11 p.m. So basically what had happened was before he left, he told me, he said, don't ever call my job and tell them that you're in labor just so I can come home early. I'm like, I would never do that. But anyway, so he left at 11 p.m. that night to go catch the helicopter to go offshore in basically the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, so he leaves at 11 o'clock that night, which is September the 1st. And he was going to be gone for 2 weeks. Well, I fall asleep. And all of a sudden, on September 2nd, at 2 in the morning, I hear pop while I was sleeping. I was like, what in the world is that? So I just laid there for a few minutes. I didn't have no contractions or anything. I wasn't in labor or nothing. I had no labor with Brayden. I had no labor with Jason either, the story that I told before this one. So I laid there for a minute and I stood up to go to the bathroom and water just gushed. I was like, oh no, my water broke. My water just broke. And I was like I said, I think 34 weeks. I think I had him 6 or 7 weeks early. So I ended up calling my doctor because I didn't know what to do. And nobody answered. So I called my mom because she lived down the road. And this was 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock. And she come got me. We went to the hospital over here, and they hooked me up to the machines and everything, and they confirmed that it was indeed my water that had broke. And my cousin got there, and I was like, well, you're going to have to call, their dad and tell him that I'm in labor. And he literally just told me, don't ever call early and say that you're in labor just for me to come home. I was like, damn. And anyway, so with Brayden, they could not deliver him in the city that I live in. I had to be transported by ambulance to Lafayette, which is an hour away. So the ambulance got to the hospital over here where I was, and my mom and my cousin followed the ambulance and me. This was 3 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, so there was no traffic. So we went to Lafayette, Women and Children's Hospital, and they had me in the room and everything. And his dad, he didn't get to see him be born because he was actually already offshore at that time and ready to come back home because he had got the call. So he had to wait on the helicopter again to bring him back. So what had happened was they had me in a room for a little while, and they was like, well, we're going to just keep you in the hospital and try to keep him in as long as we can, but we have to watch an infection because your water did break and you're in risk for an infection. I was like, okay. 5 minutes later, they come back. They're like, no, we're just going to go ahead and take him. There's a NICU over here. He's going to be born early. There's a NICU over here. We'll take care of him. I was like, all right. So my mom is the only one that got to see him be born because my son Brayden was actually spending the night at, no, not Brayden. That's with Brooklyn. Never mind. But anyway, I'm thinking about Brooklyn's story while I said Brayden. But anyway, Brayden, I'm telling Brayden's story. But his grandma on his dad's side came and his grandpa, and they lived an hour and 30 minutes away from where I was in Lafayette. And they made it to the hospital, And they was like, well, we're going to have to take him, like, now. We're going to have to deliver him. So he was like, well, who do you want in the room with you? And I was like, well, only one here is my mom, you know. So my mom watched Brayden be born. I had him via C-section. I was awake or whatever, and I was numb from the shoulders down. I had I think a spinal, I think, from the shoulders all the way down. But he was born, and he was so little. He was 4 pounds 7 ounces. Remind you, Brayden, 4 pounds 7 ounces. My first son, Jason, 5 pounds 8 ounces. But Brayden did have to stay in the NICU because his lungs were like not all the way developed. They were like caving in, and but they rushed him on the side of me. I heard him cry, and I started crying. They rushed him on the side of me, and in the little incubator thing. And my mom, I was still, doing the C-section. It was like closing me up. But my mom ran down the hall with them. They was running with Brayden to the NICU in the little incubator thing to hook him up to the machines or whatever. So my mom followed them, and Terry's parents, my kid's dad's parents, got there, and Brayden was in the NICU for 2 weeks. Okay, I had him September 2nd. I got out the hospital on my mom's birthday, September 5th. We visited Brayden every day. We called when we couldn't visit, which we visited every single day. He started getting better. September the 16th, we spent the night at the hospital because he was able to come home soon. So September the 16th, me and his dad spent the night at the hospital. The 17th, we had to take a CPR class because it was required. So we spent the night again in the hospital, the 16th and 17th. And Brayden came home from the NICU on September 18th, my birthday. I'm gonna cry. Best birthday present ever, y'all. Best birthday present ever. So he was in the NICU for 2 weeks, and he was so tiny. He was so cute though. But yeah, that was my smallest baby. He was the only one that was in the NICU. And I will tell Brooklyn's story tomorrow. But now Brayden's almost 16 years old. He will be 16 in September. So I will tell Brooklyn's story tomorrow. She'll be 13 on July 5th. Coming up. Wow. I mean 14, not 13. She'll be 14. But yeah, that's Brayden's story. And I will see y'all tomorrow with another story with Brooklyn's. And I hope y'all have a great weekend. Bye.